Good evening. I'm Josh Hager, President of the Bismarck School Board. It's 5:30 on Monday, June 22nd. I call this meeting to order. Welcome to those of you who are joining us both here and also online. You can find our agenda and follow along online under the School Board tab at bismarckschools.org. Dr. Scher, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Hager?
Here.
Mr. Eastgate?
Here.
Mr. Lee? Mrs. Peterson?
Here.
Ms. Presky?
Here.
Dr. Fosnett, would you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 1C is the BPS mission, vision, and values. The BPS mission is to empower every learner to thrive. The BPS vision states, together, our relationships build inclusive, collaborative, and innovative environments that create agency, inspire a passion for learning, excellence, and discovery. The BPS values are inclusion, excellence, innovation, leadership. You'll also find a link in the agenda to the BPS strategic plan. Item 2 is to adopt the agenda.
I'll move that we adopt the agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, Dr. Scher.
Eastgate?
Yes.
Peterson?
Yes.
Presky?
Yes.
Hager?
Yes. Agenda adopted. On to item 3, focus on success. CTE for all. Dr. Fosnett.
Good afternoon, board members. Yes, I'd like to bring to the podium and introduce our Career and Technical Education Director, Mr. Pat Phillips, who will ask some other people to join him, but nice to see you, Pat.
Thank you. Superintendent Fosnett, President Hager, members of the board, thanks for the opportunity to come and share with you today on CTE for All. So the last time we got a chance to talk to you about this, since then, CTE for All has been added as an explicit strategic priority in our district's strategic plan. And so I'd like to just do a little bit of review about the last time we talked. Since we were here, we talked about how CTE supports creating thriving learners and a thriving community. CTE supports learner engagement by providing authentic and personalized learning experiences as part of our strategic plan. And this focus on who learners are, how they learn best, what they aspire to be, is how we increase our learner engagement. And what that yields then is academic success, not only by providing the aforementioned authentic and relevant experiences, but by connecting our guaranteed and viable core curriculum in math, science, English, social studies, both to our learners and to our community and their goals and aspirations. And that bridge between foundational knowledge of school and the real world of our community and economy is what CTE seeks to provide. And we know that the sooner we engage our learners and families with this connection, the more our learners are ready to produce and contribute positively in our communities. So when people think about the Career Academy and CTE at BPS, they often think about one building on the BSC campus. And that's, of course, where the story started. But it's not the whole system. When we talk about CTE for All, we need to expand our scope. CTE courses exist in each of our middle school and high schools, as I'm sure that you know. But we also have our facilities across the street at the Technical Center on the BSC campus, at the Career Academy at Hughes, the new facility, the Career Academy at Silver Ranch. And of course, we're constantly expanding our online and hybrid opportunities through our partnership with the CRA-CTC. What we're doing now with CTE at BPS is we're moving from thinking about a CTE program or CTE programs to a more holistic, coordinated CTE ecosystem. And so what that looks like today is that CTE is everywhere at BPS. We currently serve at more than 10 sites with 8 scholarship-aligned program areas. We had over 3,300 CTE participants last year, and students who were concentrators in our CTE programs, earning 2 credits or more, had a 98% graduation rate. So we know that this creates opportunities for learner success, and we want to expand that runway like we talked about with you last year. So as you may recall, we like to think of our CTE, our career exploration, as a funnel from awareness at elementary to experiencing things at middle school to more career-oriented opportunities and focus at high school. And then beyond, work-based learning, internships, any kind of a launching pad that we can get our learners. And last year we shared with you a kind of a high-level plan to allow every single middle school student at BPS to get some career exploration through middle school. While the resources to do that weren't explicitly available last year, we did still want to continue to dedicate ourselves to expanding this runway for all of our learners. And as you can see from this slide, middle school collaboration with the Career Academy and CTE is not new. For many years, it's been a tradition that 6th graders come learn about the high school programs through hands-on experiences and activities, and in a timely fashion before our 8th graders register for their high school courses, we bring them back up for a tour so that they can see these things and make good decisions about what they're going to do. So it made sense for us as we expanded into career exploration to fill this gap and start with our 7th graders. So this year we were able to give career exploration experiences to every 7th grader at Bismarck Public Schools through the hard work and engagement of Mr. David St. Peter, who I'll introduce to share some more about that. And our plan is to use that and to leverage that to change and adapt and expand those opportunities to our 6th and 8th graders as well. So David St. Peter, our CTE coordinator who worked on this year, is going to share a little bit about what happened this year for our 7th graders.
Thank you. Hello. So like Pat mentioned, this year I was tasked with spinning up middle school career exploration. It was pretty clear to us that 7th grade was the gap that we could address. And this spun up into roughly 1,000 7th graders coming through Hughes for a half-day hands-on career exploration opportunity. As you can see, we tried to address as many of the career clusters as we could. The modern career cluster from Advanced CTE has 14 pathways or 14 clusters. I think we addressed about 11 or 12 of those. Our biggest team to roll through was a Horizon team that required 14 sessions going at once. Our smallest team from Wachter required 9, so we had to have a lot of different opportunities for our students. But as you can see, we kind of ran the gambit. Everything that we offered, the goal was hands-on career exploration. Not a lot of talking at kids, but a lot of kids getting their hands on, seeing if a career was potentially for them. So to explain the model that we spun up, simply, we hosted at Hughes. We ran a 4-station rotation model that was coached from some of our friends who do similar work across the state. And their biggest piece of advice was kids can't have choice. And the little French kid in me just rolled over and said, okay, cool, we'll run with that. We can get all the kids through if they don't get choice. But as you'll see, their feedback, obviously they wanted some choice, so we'll talk about how that's going to look next year. But main goal was that they get multiple career pathway exposures. We had a heavy focus on energy and what's the word I'm looking for? With Brink's friends and energy and
Fuel.
yeah, thank you. A little heavy on those. So some kids got multiple touches. Ideally, every kid would get 4 totally different clusters, but that's what happened. I was really happy with our industry and community connections that help facilitate these sessions for our students. When I initially thought about how this could look, I thought it would be a lot of our BPS teachers stepping out of their classrooms, using their teaching expertise to make these sessions happen. Turns out asking our teachers to miss up to 6 days of instruction was a big ask. And so being able to lean on our community partners and our post-secondary partners was really, really helpful. So I'd give a special shout out to Bobcat. They were at all 6 days, Department of Transportation all 6 days, Department of Ag. Lots of great partners helped us make this happen for our 7th graders. And then shout out to our community partners that helped us pay for the transportation and food to make this day happen. I also wanted to mention we were able to accommodate our virtual academy friends as well. It was a really cool experience. So I wanted to share with you some of the feedback from kids and how that might inform what we do as we do this again next year when we potentially go down to 6th grade or up to 8th grade. As you can imagine, the kids liked doing things, right? Middle schoolers wanted to get their hands on, and any session that had even a little bit too much talking got critiqued by them, right? Like, we want to just do the thing. If they're in the gym and they're seeing other sessions where kids are hands-on doing things and their facilitator's talking to them a little bit too much, they let us know that. I could sum up the themes here that our kids wanted more, right? They wanted more time. They wanted more choice in their sessions. They wanted more access to the things they saw their friends doing that they didn't get to. And they wanted more variety, including some of the things that either we offered and they didn't get assigned, or that we didn't offer, but they know are career clusters like digital, technology, hospitality, art, and design. Some implications for next year summed up for you. I think we could find a way to add some structured student choice, especially if we lean on the middle school teams to help us do some of that work beforehand. I think that Courtney Crane and I developed a really great framework for how these experiences could go, and we built that into a ChatGPT custom GPT model that could have coached any of these partners to maybe have a little bit less talking, a little more doing. But this year was more of like a gentle nudge, like, hey, you could try this thing if you want, and maybe next year it should be like, hey, you need to run your plan through this framework to make sure it aligns with our mission here at BPS. We've talked about different ways we could revisit the schedule. Could kids stay on site longer, or could we do multiple rotations if they came multiple times throughout the school year? Could we have more pathway balance? I'm hoping that next year we can lean on our Career Academy staff with some schedule changes I think Mr. Phillips is looking at to address some of those high demand areas that we know we have courses for at high school, but we weren't able to teach or offer this year through our sessions for our 7th graders, including aviation, hospitality, digital technology, and more. And then I'm really obsessed with this idea of Pulse, which is like an andragogy leading adults through learning thing, but I think we need to use it more for our 7th graders and our middle schoolers as well, but it's pretty much priming the learning. So can we activate some background knowledge before they get to this experience? And then the E at the end is to extend the learning. So how can we push back into the school after they return? So it's not a one day, we did a cool thing experience, but there's maybe some post-event reflection, either facilitated by their careers teacher or by our career advisors to help align those pathways that we hope they fall into, like Pat mentioned with the funnel earlier. So I'll pass it back to Pat to talk about how that moves us back to our mission to empower learners to thrive. Thank you.
So as you can see, like any pilot, we had a great experience. We added value for learners, and we've got a lot more value to add. So we're really looking forward to continuing to do this work. I just want to zoom out a little bit at the end of the presentation here just to share with you, middle school career exploration, again, thinking of that funnel as just the front door, right? Then students get the opportunity to choose high school CTE courses. They get the opportunity to learn advanced skills, earn dual credit, get industry recognized credentials, do work-based learning, capstone, internship experiences, all leading towards a choice-ready graduate. And so this is just the wide end of our funnel, exposing our learners to experiences that are going to give them some options and some ideas about what their aptitudes and interests are. So again, in relation to the BPS strategic plan, that is one of the clearest ways that CTE can bring our plan to life. We can empower learners by supporting personalized learning, preparing our future workforce, strengthening our community partnerships. When we talk about CTE, we're not talking about separate programs or a single location. We're talking about a system that helps BPS empower every learner to thrive. And with that, we'll stand for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Phillips, Mr. St. Peters. Board members, questions, comments?
President Hager.
Go ahead, Mr. Eastgate.
Thank you, President Hager. Appreciate it. Mr. Phillips, Mr. St. Peter, the whole team, thank you guys so much for all the work you do. I don't have a question for you today. I just want to say I'm just impressed with all that you continue to do with the different places that we have for CTE going on. And I really appreciate you bringing that up, that it's not one building. I like how you said at the beginning, Pat. A lot of times, for a long time, the Career Academy was CTE, the one spot. And it was, some people that don't know might even just think it's a BSC thing that we happen to come in and spend time at, but that's not the case. And just the ability that kids have had to do so many hands-on projects through BPS, and the fact that you guys are trickling that down for middle school students. And Mr. St. Peter, thank you for listening to kids. I think that's a big deal when you're told that, hey, they're not going to get a lot of choices because we got to make sure we get them through there. And then to hear, no, we need to give them more opportunities. And that's really what the CTE is all about. I mean, Pat, you just mentioned over, I think I saw 57% on that graph of our electives are in the CTE field. So I just appreciate the innovation that you guys are taking on with all of this, and that you guys can keep just leading the way with BPS and how we help educate kids the best we can through giving them more choice and more options. So appreciate you guys very much.
Ms. Presky.
Yes, thank you guys very much. I love seeing the information about expanding into our middle schools, and I think it's important because it really gives them an idea of what they want to do, or maybe what they want to explore further before they get to high school and have to sign up for their courses. So it's a great idea. I'm glad that we were able to give it a shot last year, and hopefully we can make it even better. So thank you for your time.
Mr. Kate.
I did think of a follow-up question. You guys mentioned, and I certainly appreciate our community partners. You talked about Bobcat. Are there avenues for other businesses that may or may not hear about this, but hopefully they do, that they can be a part of something like that day, and where we could either find funding or other opportunities?
Yeah, absolutely. And I appreciate that question. Thank you, Board Member Eastgate. One of the big pillars of career and technical education is our advisory committees. There's an advisory committee for each of our 8 programs that's made up of our community and industry partners, and that is a great place. That's usually where we start. So if somebody sees this presentation or hears about it, they can contact us directly, but also we would welcome them to participate in our advisory committees. That's where our teachers get to actually work with our community members to generate some of these ideas and some of these experiences for students. So thank you very much for that.
Mrs. Peterson, I can't see if your light's on, so I'll just give you an opportunity if you wanted to make a comment.
No comment that hasn't already been said, but thank you so much, Pat and David, for coming in today and just showcasing all the great work that you do and explaining a little bit more about the pilot. I've kind of wondered how it went, and so I appreciate the update.
I guess for me, just a personal moment, having had a son who's, looking at the program offerings that you guys do that has done welding to electronics, and having him trying to navigate where he wants to go and being able to have these offerings has been big for him. And then having another son who's a middle school kid who just, personal feedback from him on your guys' days here, it's way better than a normal day. So he was fine with the choices he was given that day because it meant he was outside of Wachter. So take that for what it's worth. Thank you guys both. I mean, this is great stuff. It's exciting to see where you guys are taking CTE within our community, and we talk about it all the time, being not just a state leader, BPS, when it comes to CTE, but regionally, really having others come to us and look at what we're doing and the work that you guys are doing there. It's wonderful to have these opportunities for these kids to look at these things, explore these things, now down to middle school, working your way into elementary school, and start to help them develop that career path and determine those things that they like and want to do going forward. It's amazing. So I really appreciate the work you guys are doing. Thank you.
For your support.
Dr. Frost.
Well, I'd be remiss if I didn't say, well done, guys, both of you, Mr. St. Peter, Mr. Phillips. It really is a brainchild that was here before I got here. This path that we're on and where you're at now started before I entered BPS. I remember seeing a dream, an incarnation of what you wanted to build in the Hughes facility for middle school kids, and due to some not getting grant funding from the state, and also maybe even some of the things we wanted to do in the bond request puts us on a different timeline. But all that's leading up, little incremental steps, and these guys are doing that work. All the people that help them, if you go down there on a day that they're doing this activity, it is a beehive of activity, but you see a lot of adults really engaging and helping build this. I thank you for applauding those community partners for doing that, because as we build it out and as we get those learning spaces kind of brought into what we need them to be to engage kids this way, as we build the course offerings, the hands-on options for our kids, Now, instead of one rotation, hey, could we get our sixth graders into 3 rotations a year? Could we get our seventh graders into 3 rotations a year? Eighth graders into multiple rotations? That's really the dream of that Hughes facility to build out into. And as much as your son loved to get out of Wachter to do that, just imagine if you could do that more often and now make sure you hit all the rotations and hit all the rotations multiple times. So that really you get a chance to taste every career, but then you really say, this is what I want to do. I really want to say, I want to into these 2 or 3 when I enter high school. And then you got a few more years to say, nope, that's the one. That's the one I want to go to college for. So, or wherever that may be. So, yeah, well done, guys.
Thank you, guys. Item 4 on the agenda is public comment. The board recognizes the central role parents play in the education of their children and supports active parent involvement in the education process. The board's practice of public comment reflects and aligns with policy BCBA and the spirit of its intent. For classroom issues, it's best to follow the chain of command: teacher, principal, assistant superintendent, superintendent. For district issues, please reach out to Dr. Fosnot. If you do speak tonight, we simply ask that you be responsible, be helpful, and be respectful. Our BPS students deserve to have adults model the expectations we have for them. Groups are urged to select one spokesperson. Individuals will be limited to no more than 4 minutes and will be notified with 30 seconds remaining to conclude their remarks. The board will not debate issues as presented, but will take such matters under advisement. With that, please stand and approach the podium if you wish to speak tonight. Okay, seeing no one, public comment is now closed. Item 5, monitoring district operations, OE11 instructional program. Dr. Fosnot.
All right, I think am I inviting Dr. Johnson to the podium on this one? Or is that Miss Amanda? Miss Meyer?
I had to get my punch card.
Oh, sorry. Introducing Miss almost Dr. Meyer, so well on her way. She just finished another couple hard weeks at UMary, so we got to give her a little break tonight. So welcome to the podium, Amanda.
Thank you. Good afternoon, President Hager and members of the board. I have the pleasure of presenting the annual OE11 instructional program report. Hopefully you have that in front of you. The purpose of this report is to ensure that a program of instruction is established and maintained. And as you review the report, you'll see evidence of our work in ensuring instructional programs remain aligned to state standards and to research best practices. You'll see how we continue to monitor and measure student progress toward those standards through multiple assessment measures. Because I did this same presentation last year and you are very familiar with our curriculum program and our Guiding Coalition teams, our goal this year was to bring as many educators and students in front of you to bring these indicators to life. So we hope that since January, you've enjoyed educators and students sharing their real-world examples of our curriculum alignment, standards prioritization, course development, and instructional innovations. We hope that those presentations provided additional context and transparency around the work that we do in our district every day. In addition, I want to pull out a few other points of data in the report. The first is that the state released new physical education standards in the 24-25 school year. We approved 13 new courses that were designed to expand opportunities for our students. We approved 16 action research projects that our educators were doing through their master's or their doctoral programs, and we had 15 new instructional resources that were approved. These numbers reflect not only a culture of innovation, but also the systematic processes that we have in place to thoughtfully evaluate new ideas and improve teaching and learning across BPS. Additionally, as you heard on September 22nd, when Mr. Madler and his colleagues were here, we continue to strengthen our partnerships with our higher education partners, and our participation in extra co-curricular activities and our student clubs continues to grow. Unfortunately, we do have one indicator that we find ourselves in compliance with exception, and that is the same indicator as last year, OE 11.9. Our completion rate for the required ACDA training did increase to 91.1% for the 24-25 school year, and we are excited that it will increase to 94% for the 25-26 school year, but we do need to continue because the indicator says all. And so we need to continue to look at barriers that create challenges in those first 4 weeks to make sure that all of our staff get that required training. And as I conclude, and then I will stand for any questions, I would like to recognize several additional innovations this school year. One being what you just heard from Mr. Phillips on the career and technical education experiences that we're providing for students. Two being the expansion of our virtual academy into grades 9 through 12. Three, our transition from Viewpoint to Panorama to improve our data utilization processes. And four, the incredible work our elementary division did this year in gearing up for kindergarten initiative. These successes are only possible because of the dedication of our educators, support staff, administrators, community partners, families, and of course, our students, which we hope you heard from often this year. One final note to take into consideration on OE 11 2.3, we will have to consider changing language because we're transitioning to Infinite Campus. And so right now, Power School is named in the report, and so we'll just want to make that change next year so that when we report for 26-27, that's up to date. And at this time, I would ask for you to consider OE 11 instructional programs in compliance with exception, and we'll stand for any questions.
Thanks, Ms. Meyer. Board members, questions, comments? If not, I'd entertain a motion. Ms. Presky?
President
Ms. Peterson?
President Hager, I'm so sorry. This is one of those meetings that I really wish that I could be there in person because I think that this particular indicator is chock full of really important data and information. Thank you, Amanda, for presenting it. I would just comment that the indicator that is there that has noted exceptions. I agree that all does mean all, but the fact of getting all students and staff in the first 4 weeks of school is probably a hurdle that's pretty challenging to do in a staff and student body the size of our district. And so I would say that the percentage that was reached and then the continued monitoring of that still means that this report would be fully in compliance in my book. But I just appreciate all of the hard work that went into the report and the update. And also wanted to note that I think it has been noted that there's been a lot more student involvement and student features on students and educators, throughout the year. And I hope that continues in the upcoming year as well, because that's been appreciated. It's what the public wants to see. It's what we want to see. We want to see these things in action. So thank you for those notations.
Thanks, Ms. Peterson. Ms. Presky?
I had similar thoughts as Mrs. Peterson as far as our recommendation. So I would move that we accept the report OE 11 instructional program is fully compliant.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Can I make a comment before you vote, since our vote taker's out anyway? Can I make a comment before we vote?
Sure.
Sorry. I would say, just to echo Ms. Meyer's points, that it's the first week. We're getting all of our kids, obviously a late enrollment, maybe not, but for the staff, we have run into some hurdles. I know it's getting better, and we're truly trying to double down on that, but the ones that we're struggling with are not your frontline employees that are here every day or in classrooms. This is your nighttime custodial staff. It's your staff that maybe doesn't speak English as their primary language, which we've had some challenges with. Some of those are the ones and twos that we're missing on that. I know we need to do better. We can do better, but just to give it some characterization of where the challenges run into when you say all means all. I know that we want to strive for that, but that's some of the challenges run into for some of the adult population. But so.
Thank
I
you,
will
Dr.
say I'm really disappointed that Mr. Lee is not here because I prepared for his really hard questions. So if you guys could just share that, or maybe he's watching, but I was ready for really hard questions tonight.
We'll have him just email you.
Perfect.
Dr. Scher?
Roll call. So who made the,
Peterson and Preston.
okay?
Nope.
Oh, sorry.
Presky.
Rusty,
Eastgate.
Eastgate.
Eastgate. Oh, that didn't know it's I took.
Peterson,
Yes.
Kresge,
Yes.
Eastgate,
Yes.
Hager.
Yes. Thank you, Ms. Meyer.
Thank you.
So we were promised we'd have canvassing results before this board meeting, and I still do not have canvassing, and I am unable to get a hold of the elections coordinator, our auditor, so I am at a loss, to be honest with you. We may have to do just a special call-in meeting to accept the results, declare the winners, and then we also have to declare how Measure 1 and Measure 2 came out.
Okay, so we'll table this till a special board meeting. Okay. Do we need a motion to table it?
Yeah, I think Robert's rules would tell us we should probably do
Okay.
that.
Mr. Eastgate?
President Hager, I would move that we will table 6A, matters reserved for board action, approval of canvass June 9th, 2026 school board election until we have said results.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, Dr. Scher?
Peterson,
Yes.
Kresge,
Yes.
Eastgate,
Yes.
Hager.
Yes.
And our apologies on that. We can only do with what we're promised to do, but if we get them the next day or two, we'll just call a special meeting, phone call meeting, so you can approve them.
Sounds good. Down to matters reserved for, oh, no, sorry, consent agenda. You guys threw me off. We jumped right into that one. What are the wishes of the board?
I'd move that to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Dr. Scher?
Kresge,
Yes.
Eastgate,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Hager.
Yes. Down to the superintendent's report. Dr. Fosson?
All right. Okay, first thing I have for you tonight, I just have a couple items, and hopefully you have the updated agenda. I think earlier today, we added a third item for me. But the first one is the election results, a 5-year plan. Mr. Barnard's going to flip through some slides. I just have some talking points because I think even though you didn't canvass the results, I think the results are widely known. So we'll go over those tonight, and then maybe my intent here is to give you my thoughts going forward. So can I just acknowledge over the past year, and particularly during the referendum process, there's been many opinions expressed about the district, our facilities, and decisions made over many decades. Some conversations were productive, some were probably, I'd feel, pretty critical and maybe warranted. But leadership is not about standing on the sideline. I'm going to tell you that. And in the heart of upcoming opening of the Teddy Roosevelt Museum and the Man in the Arena speech, I feel good that we were in the arena. People making decisions. We weren't swayed by maybe the critic on the outside of the ring. We were doing the hard work inside the ring. So I appreciate that. And inside the arena. Throughout the process, we've chose to stay in the arena and step into the arena. We've identified the needs. We presented the plan. We asked our community to weigh in. And the community spoke on June 9th. And we got to respect that decision. Tonight, what I'd like to offer you is really answering a simple question. What do we do now after the June 9th decision? So our goal tonight, I guess, with these slides is to reiterate the election, is discuss the responsible path forward, review my recommendations to you, and then kind of hopefully seek some board direction of where you want me and my team to go. So first of all, let's talk about the results. I think it's important to start with perspective. The measure received 58.6% support with the required 60% threshold. In most elections, that would be considered a decisive victory. Almost every other election, that would be a decisive victory. The results also occurred during a low turnout election with just over 21% of eligible voters voting. You can see 2024 presidential election, high demand election, we had 70%. But you can see the last two primaries hovered around the similar, even lower in 2022. But again, a very low voter turnout, and I think was not, when I look at distribution of voters, was very much not, wasn't a full distribution of possible voters in our community. Definitely, I'm an older person. I think voters in primaries tend to skew towards older voters. So I share this because I think voter turnout is one factor we should consider as we discuss options moving forward. The path forward, I'm going to go back to exactly what I said to people when they asked the question as we were pitching the bond. And the failed referendum didn't eliminate the needs that are out there in the district. As I stated during the campaign, if the question failed, we would begin the work with a focus on ADA concerns, safety issues, and aging infrastructure. Our challenge is determining what we can accomplish with the available funds, particularly building funds and our building fund account. So I would offer to you, board members and the community, I guess, listening, I think project number one, and my recommendation to you, is the Wilmore project as our first priority. This project addresses accessibility, safety, energy management, and modernization. Estimated cost for the project was stated to everybody during the campaign as $1.65 million. That was a 2024 estimate. So actually, that whole sheet was a 2024 estimate. I'll kind of explain that in a second. But if we were serious about addressing our most pressing ADA concerns, this is where I think we need to start. The second priority I think we need to focus on after Wilmore, or in close conjunction with Wilmore, is Pioneer. Is our second priority. It represents one of the district's most significant ADA challenges. Estimated cost was approximately $4.3 million. And again, this project highlighted extensively during the referendum and needs not only for ADA capacity, but bathrooms, elevator, accessibility, even safety concerns with the redesign of the front entryway. The third project I would put in the short list for what we should work on next is addressing the boiler replacement at BHS. That is not highly visible. Most people can't see it. It's buried in the bowels of BHS, but it's essential infrastructure. Replacing the system proactively is responsible stewardship, and we've been living on borrowed time. I said that to many people in many groups. We're living on borrowed time. We got to get this done. So we need to get this done in somewhat a shorter timeline. The cost for replacing the boiler and the cooling tower at BHS was $1.8 million, again, based on those initial 2024 estimates. So I guess the next question is, how do you pay for it? So I stole a slide from a previous slide deck I've shared with you. Tonight's recommendation is built around one question. How do we address critical needs without compromising district operations? And the answer is the building fund. And I think we've talked about that. We've talked about it here and shared it with the public. We project growth and valuation, which will help, but we're also constrained within the building fund by the state's 3% cap. The 3% cap line is the maximum the district can request this coming year. If you look at the slide, you'll see towards the bottom underneath revenue evaluation projection for next year. And then you'll see a property tax, what we can collect with the 3% cap, and then what we could collect with the full 10 mills. Notice that they're different. Okay, so the 3% cap is line is the maximum the district can request this coming year. The 10 mill cap is what we would have requested if we were able to request the full 10 mills, which was voter approved in 1957. The difference between those two lines for 26-27 is $263,000 for this upcoming year. As you know, this year it was about $98,000 that we couldn't collect within that building fund levy. The plan assumes continued maintenance spending, continued debt obligation, as you can see under the expenditures, and continued commitments already approved by the board. So in the expenditure side, as we said during the campaign, we are paying for Silver Ranch and Elk Ridge out of our building fund. That was a tax deferment, you might say, for the voters when those schools were approved, because the district did not go to voters to ask for additional funds. We borrowed that money directly out of the building fund and have a 20-year payback on those dollars. You can also see that the district is supporting the improvements at the MDU Bowl, Community Bowl. You can see those projects if you drive around it now. There's multiple players in that. If you remember, we had BSC in there. We have Parks. Us are all helping to do that critical work at the bowl, but BPS, because we have we can bid more aggressively and easily than a state institution like BSC. We became the bankroll for that with a 5-year payback for all the other entities reimbursing BPS. So we'll be seeing some additional revenue over the next few years from them. We also have reserved, you can see the line that's kind of double pound marked at the bottom. Because we heard it during the campaign, people asked, they said, well, why haven't you been putting more towards maintenance? Well, okay, so we're going to take that line and allocate an additional $1 million out of maintenance and say we're not going to do some bigger projects. We're going to just do annual maintenance out of the building fund to help to start to get on top of that. So we've added an additional line in there in the expenditure side. If you go to the next page to give you the long run at the building fund, and this is maybe hard to see, my apologies, there's a lot of data on there. Pardon me? It's all hard to see, sorry. Hopefully you got an easier one you can view on your computer. But without voter-approved bonding authority, the timeline for all the projects that we laid out in the campaign, you might say, all those 127 million, really just get extended. I think what we talked about is if this was the result, it was the 23-year plan, right? So we're in the first phase of the 23-year plan. Projects that could have been completed sooner are now just spread out over multiple years. Again, our plan is to begin with Millmore, that project in the summer of 2028. Please note that the total cost of Willmore is now showing 1.65 million on the previous slide, if you remember that, but that was a 2024 estimate. This is because our document that we provided during the referendum discussions took all the 2024 estimates and kind of compiled them to the far column on the right and then added them down. And if you remember at the bottom, it said, here's the 2027 or 2026 number, the 2027 number, and the 2028 number. Because as a district, we took all those inputs from our engineers and architects, added them, and then we just added 5.2% on for inflation. Well, now if we're going to pick projects out, individual projects, now we're just going to the 2024 line and now recalculating, as we said, the 1.65 number. Now we're adding inflation line by line, not at the bottom. Okay, so. Hopefully that makes sense for people. So we're not having to add the inflation again at the end or at the bottom of the project, but line by line. The same is true for Pioneer. Pioneer would be a project for the summer of 2030. So again, we've compounded the 2024 number to get it out to 2030. And the BHS problem, cash flowing, we believe we can address BHS in the summer of 2030-31. All these using available funds generated within the building fund. The remaining projects outside of those three that we listed in that extensive document that we shared with the community, we'll just have to wait for another time, another day as we project forward. And so I would guess that next year, the year after this, as I continue to come back to you, we'll just keep looking in the future saying, what did we get done and what can we project forward, okay? But that's kind of the 5-year plan within the available building fund funds that we have available. So let's just talk about that impact of inflation. And again, very small document, but this one, you can find this document. You probably should be very familiar. It was online with our bond materials for months. It's the same document that I'm sharing with you. But I just want to clarify something that just to make sure people aren't confused. The costs I'm sharing tonight, again, we took all the 2024 numbers and we compounded inflation at the bottom right of that sheet that we are trying to share with the community. I'm now going back to the single line, and I'm compounding inflation line by line, okay, based on when we think we can get it done. So again, on the next slide, you can see as an example of doing that, I took the Pioneer line and just using Pioneer as an example, inflation significantly increases this project over time. The project was estimated at 4.3 in 2024. If we use 5.2% inflation projections, this now makes a summer 23 project start escalating to 5.8 million. And that's what you see in this proposal I'm giving you. So delays in time are not our friend. They're not our friend to anybody for any reason, but for building projects like we're talking about, they're definitely not our friend and they're working against us financially. So I'm going to go back on the next slide, I guess, before I get into 3% caps. Any questions on my recommendation? Willmore, Pioneer, BHS.
Mr. Eastgate.
I don't have questions necessarily, Dr. Fosnant, but those were two of the schools that I had to visit just at the end of this last semester. So I feel like, just some perspective on that before you brought those up tonight, I think all of us as a board have spoken out again and again about the importance of those issues and why, and they have been for a while. It's not new to anybody. But I'd say I appreciate you taking that, because that is where I think our board is at. So with that, the boilers, I don't know if anybody necessarily has them on the top list, because it's not like you said, but it's also something we do recognize. We also want things that, as a school board, that is also impacting kids the best it can. And like it or not, boilers will, because it's going to get cold in North Dakota again. So,
Well, and so you and board members, you appreciate too. I went back to things you did pre-me with Dr. Hornbacher. You saw those proposals for Wilmore and Pioneer, right? So they've been on your radar for a while. So that led into why meeting with Dr. Scher, it's like, okay, these need to rise to the top. I would tell you that BHS, I think there'd probably be people that said there should be another school. We should deal with Solheim. We should deal with other schools that have ADA issues, because we still have Pioneer, or Prairie Rose, sorry, that needs an elevator. But I would tell you, one of the things I heard from many people while I was out campaigning the bond and informing the community was, well, why haven't you dealt with BHS? It's 70-year boilers. Well, because they keep going, we get life out of them, and we can deal with something else. Well, that only goes till it breaks. And I think when you talk to Dr. Scher and Mr. Mittelstadt, it's like, if the 70-year boiler would bust, well, tomorrow doesn't matter because it's going to be 70 degrees out, but if it busts in the fall, can we operate on the one? Absolutely you can. You can operate on the one. On the coldest day, we might have to make a choice if we have school or not, because I don't know if one will keep up or we'll be able to rotate and keep them operational. You just hope the second one doesn't give you a hiccup on the coldest day, and I think that's where we worry about, like you said, operations for kids, because at that point, one school's not having school. Those kids aren't coming to school. Well, the rest of them are. So we think we got to move that up on the priority list. So I appreciate that.
I guess the only comment I would have is the having to choose, as we know that you looked at that list and we all did, and then you get to the stage that you're at, Dr. Fosnant, and you're having to decide with the limited dollars that we have at this moment, which projects to start on. And as you and I have spoken, we've talked about compounding interest in dollars today versus what they might look like in the future, and how this looks. Okay, you can get these near-term projects, but there's more. We've got other schools, like you mentioned, Prairie Rose and Jeanette Myrie and those kinds of things. And driving by Myrie yesterday and kind of thinking about them and thinking about all these schools and having to make these choices, and just thinking, gosh, it would have been nice to get to that 60%, because these are needs. These are things that need to be done, and it'll be past my time, but my recommendation to this board would be to try and pass a bond.
Yeah, I think it's the needs aren't going away, which you're probably going to hear some things about that too. I think that's still consideration, the board and the future board, because you're going to have 2 new board members in days, right? Need to consider how they want to address that, because I would tell you, I fretted about this as soon as on June 10th I had meetings with my leadership, and on the 11th and the 12th and the 13th while I was away and kind of taking a little break, my mind was on like, but how do I say this to X school? And I could pick multiple schools. I'm going to say X school, you don't get yours until probably 5, 6, 7, 8 years out in the future that we would do that if we would follow this plan. Yeah.
Right.
So,
Ms. Peterson, I hear you.
Yeah, thank you, President Hager and Dr. Fosnant. And I know you still have a couple more slides left to talk us through, but I think that that's exactly what I'm hearing both of you say. I think that had, I've always said since this whole process started, I think we all recognize that this was a need versus want kind of bond. And I think that over the, I don't even remember your final number, Dr. Fosnant, but I think it was over 80 community events. We kept emphasizing that these were needs. And so as you're going through, I 100% support your timeline on the 3 projects that you just highlighted, because I think that that's exactly what, Mr. Eastgate said, that those need to get started regardless of whether we pass a bond. But I don't think that, to me, when I see a 58.6% vote, to me, that's what I've been saying all along. The vote and the community would tell us the direction that we need to go. And that tells me that this was not a decisive no. This wasn't a 30% of people that were on the fence. This was very, very close to our threshold, which means that the majority of the people that turned out, which was a very small amount, want to see this through. And because of the legislature and the fact that we don't get to just do this whenever we want, we really only have a few opportunities, and one of those opportunities in November. So I know you're going to talk a little bit more about the cost, but things aren't going to get less expensive. And not only the compounding interest and the 3% caps and the things that you're talking about, but just the building costs and just whether you're talking inflation or building materials or additional needs. I mean, these were still needs that if you look through your slides, we were evaluating those in 2022, 2023, 2024. So this is all assuming that we're not going to have additional needs that are going to come in and that need to be addressed. And, roofs that leak or parking lots that get, tore up. So I just can't see us sitting here and doing only those 3 projects in the next, 5 years, telling all those other schools that you're on the 10 to 23 year plan when we have another opportunity that comes in November. So just wanted to kind of speak to that. And then I know you've got a couple more slides that you want to do as well.
Okay, then I'll switch over this slide. Again, this is kind of a little bit more explanation for the 3% cap. And I'm sharing this with legislators tomorrow, just so you know. I have a meeting at the chamber tomorrow, and I'm going to share this with them as well, because I think it's really important to clarify, particularly in the general fund and other areas, the district's been tremendously fiscally frugal. The building fund's always been 10 mils, and you kind of always could count on that to help address some of your maintenance issues. The 3% cap, and I think many people's argument legislatively is like this was a voter-approved levy. But law says it's bound to the 3% cap. But that has a ripple effect. So I highlighted in the highlighted line for you, that was a $98,000 difference this year that we could have used for maintenance and doing some of this work. Next year, that's $263,000. And then if you keep adding it, it compounds against each other because now it's 3% of a smaller number of, it works in your disfavor, right? So over the next 5 years of projecting, if we have projected valuations close, and again, that's just kind of based on a guess projection, right? 5% growth in valuations, that's $2.9 million. That's a school project. That's one of the school projects in the list. I'll guarantee you we had something that was $2.9 million, okay? So that's kind of additionally stretching us. Like we said, we're not at 10 mils this year. We're at 9.86 mils, and that will probably go down next year. I would guess if valuations grow over 3%, it'll drive the mill rate down again, so that's the implications of that. So if we go to the next slide, thank you, Mr. Barnhart. We're already constrained with statutory limits, and the question becomes whether permanent taxation or targeted voter-approved investments are preferable. So I think the comment I want to make there is I shared this slide earlier at a board meeting because some entities go back and they go and ask for more. You could get 20 mils in your building fund. You could go to voters and ask to raise it to 20 mils instead of 10, right? People may not believe this, but trying to protect taxpayers in that if there's a need in your district and you go to the voters and you say, would you address this need? You pay for that over 20 years and then it goes away. That disappears. If voters approve an increase to this levy, that stays there like it did from 1957. It stays there. I would tell you the better choice of voters is to say, when your district comes to you and asks for funds to address a need, we're coming because that's the best solution for us and taxpayers than to ask for a levy that stays on there forever. That, I'm telling you, is not the best thing for taxpayers. Maybe great for schools, but that's not what I would ever recommend to you, or I don't think I would want to recommend that to you because that's putting me in a pretty tough box. And I just don't like that, okay? So why not the general fund? I think that's the other question we got when I was out doing the community meetings. Why not use the general fund? I'll break this down really simply. The general fund extends to support students and staff. That fund pays for teachers, support staff, professionals, classroom services, and student opportunities. Using general fund dollars for major facility projects would require us to choose between maintaining programs and services for kids and supporting our people versus maintaining buildings. And the district is already under significant pressure to address wage and benefit gaps, to retain and attract high-quality workforce. I would tell you this was clearly stated to me by many concerned parents last fall when they said, why are you doing the work with busing? If you just paid bus drivers more. Pay bus drivers more, we could have more bus drivers. Well, I can't pay bus drivers more in an environment where I don't have money to do that. I don't have money in the general fund to do that because I only have so many dollars in the bucket. If you want to retain and attract workforce and all the different workforce that we employ in Bismarck Public Schools, I think it's really important to not deplete that to work on facilities needs because I don't think wage pressure is going to get easier either. I think that's going to continue to have a lot of pressure. And I'd also tell you in the red mark, I think you have a policy that you hold me to, that you want our beginning fund, ending fund balance to be at 10%. I would tell you 10%. I heard people say too, like that's $18 million. Why don't you use it? $18 million does not pay for 1 month of operations in the district. So if you have a business and you have a cash flow account to operate that business, I'm sure everybody who has a business can tell you there needs to be a cash flow account. That's a cash flow account for the district that's less than a month's operation. So I can't honestly tap that and then bankrupt you and you have to go borrow money to just pay people at the end of the month. That's not right. So all that being said, it leads to the final slide. And I think this is what I have to offer you is you kind of already addressed it, Board Member Eastgate, but do you agree with the proposal and these priorities? Do you have concerns with voter turnout in the June 9th election? Because I think that's something we should think about. And do you want us to present to the board the timetable for a November question? Because statute says there are certain timelines we have to meet. And if you even remotely think you want to consider that, or the new board wants to consider that, then Dr. Scher and I need to give you those timelines because there are things we have to do in a timely fashion. So
if you're looking for a response, at least from me, the short timer here, I'm yes on all those, Dr. Fossen. I do agree with your plan and how you've put the priorities together as best you could, knowing that there's no real winner there. And yeah, to me, it seems like you should start to prepare that timetable for the next board, knowing, as Mrs. Peterson pointed out very nicely, that yeah, November's the last chance for a while.
Yeah, that's by statute. That's the last chance this board would have to ask that question until June of 2028.
Right. Ms. Reeskey.
Yeah, thanks, President Hager. Dr. Fossen on a few things, so I'm going to go over. I'm just looking at your questions for kind of my notes, but I already mentioned to you, as you said, I agree with the plan proposal. Does the plan address your priorities? Yes and no. And I'd say yes because, as we previously mentioned, those are the priorities. But I'm sure, like a lot of not just board members but community members, I have friends in different schools and different districts, and I know the impact for their families by us not being able to put their school first. I just want to say that loud and clear. You mentioned earlier, Solheim, very full school, a lot of people down there that they want better. We could easily say they deserve to get that as well. And that's just one other example, but I would love to see that happen. So I had some questions for you, and it was touched on, but I'm going to ask you some other questions, and we'll see how well you do here. But what % do we need to pass when we put up a bond, Dr. Fosnat?
60.
60%. And that was put in historically because we were able to hold special elections. Would that be one strong reason why?
Yep, even in my tenure in Ellendale, which in 2010 10, we had to use a 60%. That was the law back then. It's been the law when I was in Mandan, 60%. But in both those situations, which I would agree with my good friend Senator Don Scheible, who him and I used to spar over this, that was because of the special election, and particularly rural communities where rural taxpayers carried a lot of the burden
Sure.
for those type of bonds.
But we're no longer allowed to hold special elections.
you
So
are
we held
not.
it at a primary.
Nope.
And yet we're still held to the 60%, although, correct me if I'm wrong, but all the other political subs need over 50% or 50% plus one.
I'm not aware of any other political sub that has to get 60%.
So, and that just leads me to some of the rest. So it's, yeah, I mean, not necessarily even the voter turnout, but just how that goes down. We already know, because the news already had indicated that we had won the election, right? Because it certainly had appeared that way. But because of those kind of facts, it didn't go that way. I would like you guys to be able to present a timetable, would be my answer. And I'd also throw out there that, and maybe we need to wait till we have the new board members, but to look at possibly adding some other board meetings. I know the summer somewhat slows down at times for the district, but our work does not appear to be slowing down if we're going to be serious about saying the priorities is these three three schools, but we want to see what we can do for the rest. So just a conversation piece for the rest of the board as we look forward. I know right now you're going to talk about it next, but we have one July and one August, and it's very possible that we as a board are going to have to put in some more time to make sure that we're hitting these things if it's what we want to do. So I hope that answers your question and gives you direction where I'm at.
Ms. Presky.
Yeah, I guess, does the plan address your priorities? I guess when you look at 3 projects being done, when we had an opportunity as a community to address 25, and all those projects, a student going through the schools would see the impact of one of those projects, every single student. And so now to look at that potentially we could only do 3 projects, you have to swallow hard on that. I'm disappointed in the vote. As Board Member Eastgate alluded to, I think this is one of those downfalls of the last legislative session with the way the reform measures were written. And if they took away the ability to have special elections, but then they also put a clamp down, or kept the clamp down on the 60%. And so I think I would challenge our community to have conversations with lawmakers, yourself to have conversations with lawmakers, us to have conversations with lawmakers, that is there something in between that 50 plus 1 and 60% that should be better for communities out there trying to get the job done for their communities. As far as voter turnout, it's usually what we saw. So, I mean, it is what it is. I don't know how you increase it other than people just really getting more interested and involved in our local elections and what's going on in our communities, because that's really what it's for, is our local elections and our legislative districts that are running. I would like to see more. I'd like us as a board to push for more and to go again in November. Having an election every 2 years it's going to be tough to address these needs in that short or in that time period. And so I really would hope that we can try to push again in November and have the community support. And I guess I also want to just loop around. There were lots of people in our community that helped with this effort. It wasn't an effort driven by the school board or Superintendent Fosnot. It was a community-driven effort, and I think they did a phenomenal job with getting the word out, making the community aware of the needs that are out there in our community. So I really appreciate the work that they did, and the failure of this vote is no reflection of the effort that was done to educate the public.
Mrs. Peterson.
Thanks, Ms. Presky. I think you touched on something that I wanted to talk about too, is the campaign and the PTAs and the community leaders and the teachers and the educators who came out and really kind of to me, that is the voice that I'm listening to the most. If we would have been at a much lower percentage, I think the conversation would look a little bit different. But to answer the three questions, I think I kind of spoke of it yesterday, like earlier. Yeah, I mean, I would say we still need to move forward on those priority items, and I agree with your recommendations and the timeline of the facilities and the funding that exists right now. But I do think a timeline is necessary. I do think that we owe it to the educators that took all their time and effort to come out and try to also, bring this vote. Like, we've got to also put in some extra time as a board, because I think that even though I think the turnout was expected, as Ms. Kresge talked about, I also think that is impressive, and to almost get across that threshold with the short timeline that we gave our community to stand up an effort or to even learn about the bond. And there were still so many different voices that I would run into that had so many questions, even though you guys did all of these, these different events in the public sphere, and then those community members were out there. So just more and more, I think the word is already out there. I think the community not only told us that this is what they want, but I think they would be interested in us trying again in November, seeing where that leads us, and then having that many more opportunities to ask some of those questions. I do want the new board to be able to weigh in, and so I think that might just require a few more opportunities for us to connect with them and make sure that it's not just us that's saying this, that they are also for it. I think that they talked about it a little bit in their campaign, so I feel like I have a little bit of an indication of where they're going to go, but I think they're going to want to probably dig in and answer that question a little bit more as well. So with that, I would just recommend a timeline, knowing that we're all willing to kind of put in the work. Appreciate the opportunity to do things like I'm doing right now, be on a work trip, but also call in and participate in the way that I am, in case that is something that affects, our summer meeting dates. But with that, I just would, I think that we're all kind of speaking some of the same messaging, and I don't think the needs are going to go away. And I think we really established the priorities and needs throughout the committee work this last year.
Okay, I think I know what you want me to do, at least for a couple weeks till the board changes, and we'll see how it goes. But okay, I'll march forward with those. Thank you for your input. If you're okay, then I'll go to the next one, Mr. Ager. We normally give out the meeting schedule this time. It just happened to work perfectly that this is like you said, it's a good time to maybe adjust it. If you're thinking you want to, and we could do it in July. We could let the new board decide too. But I really think it'd be nice to at least declare some so we can schedule this meeting room. We can make sure it's reserved. We can do all that planning. If you're thinking, my recommendation would be to add a second meeting in July and August. If nothing else, it gives time for the future board to consider working through the big questions. And that would be July 27th and August 24th.
Would you necessarily want them to be in this room, or would you prefer them to be a workshop?
I think I would schedule them here in this meeting room as meetings, and then I guess, to me, on July 13th, that becomes another discussion for the new board of, do you want meetings, or do you want workshop time, or what do you want to do, or do you want to add more time? I think for at least two board members, they have a lot of, you guys have been here around a while. No offense, you've had a lot of background. So what's the best way to get them caught up in all the background? So that's what I'd recommend, Mr. Ager.
Sure.
I'm not sure if you're looking for a motion, but I would agree with those suggestions, those meeting times.
Oh, we're gonna take you back to matters reserved for board action, because we do have the results now. So when we go back there, maybe we can, under that section, or do you want to do it now? Or do you want to do that?
So we could do it now, but just to Mrs. Peterson's point is, do we want that? We'll reserve the room, right, just in preparation. Do we want that motion to come with the new board at the next meeting?
Maybe I could live with that as long as we reserve the room. I'm more making sure we have the time in place. So if you're okay with that, okay. We'll work on those for you for the July 13th consideration. Okay. Then the next one I have is kind of new. This is actually brought this forward. Many parents, maybe I've had a few parents ask me about the technology survey that came out from the Department of Public Construction, Lieutenant Governor's office. You saw several legislators send that around about screen time. Real popular discussion. I would like to just tell the audience, we've been talking about screen time between Dr. Johnson, Mr. Barnhart, and I, and others in my office for months, probably since February, March, about we really need to coalesce the community about screen time discussion and what's appropriate at each, not only maybe not each grade level, but bands, primary grades, middle elementary, middle school, high school. And with that, as of recently, it's been really getting a lot of traction about just how do we use AI in the classroom? How does AI not only as a tool for teachers, but also as some would say a tool or a crutch for students? And what's our philosophy on how we should use that in the classroom? So what I just wanted you to know, board members, and also the community, is you already know, I've shared it with you, is that I'd really like to, in September, convene a larger group of learning excellence to kind of say, if you have an interest in this, can you come and let's start having a discussion about screen time, AI in classrooms? Because I had some people ask me late in the winter, like, they wanted me to put significant constrictions on screen time for students. And I said, I don't think that's for me to determine. Do I have the power? Maybe I do, but I don't think I should have the power to do that, because I said I think that affects kids and affects parents and affects staff members and teachers and a bunch of other stuff. So this is really a continuation of that discussion to say, I need more voice. I need more people to weigh in on that and what they think is responsible and reasonable for their children, and then get all the stakeholders involved. So I'm just letting you know that I'd like to really organize something around this topic in September. So you're aware. And if you're watching and listening, if there's something that interests you, be watching for something, because we'll probably be seeking you out. So, and the last thing I have before I'm going to hand it off to Dr. Scher is thank you, Mr. Hager. Thank you for your service to BPS. Thank you for you ran in a hotly contested race and you came out on top. And I think that was a wise choice by the voters at that time, pre-me. I'm glad they hired you or elected you, because I'm glad you were part of the group that hired me. And I must tell you that all my times working with you, you are as honorable and respectful and dedicated public servant that I've ever had a chance to work with. So thank you, and thank you for being a really good president too. So.
Ms. Bresky, we're doing this, huh?
I'm going to chime in as well. Josh, thank you so much for the dedication that you've given Bismarck Public Schools, our board. I mean, your personality, you as a person, I didn't know you at all before you came on the board, and you're just a tremendous person and community member, so thank you so much. I've really appreciated your inside knowledge on finances and how you've helped move, explain things and help move us into some of the digital changes that we've made. So thank you so much, and we'll miss you.
Thanks. Thank you.
Just wait, make them wait.
I was going to move right along. All right, Mr. Eastgate.
Thanks, President Hager. Appreciate you calling on me. Josh, Danelle really said it. You were one of the nicest guys in town. So we'll just start with that. But beyond that, just some of the other stuff, you really brought quite the resume to being a board member. You're the father of 3 BPS kids. Danelle mentioned your accounting background, which, as you know, I greatly rely on, because that's not my strength, but it sure is good having you there to give us that information, that knowledge. Josh is a youth sports coach. He's super involved in his church. He's just really, really active in all the things that matter to him. And like Josh is known to do, I'm going to give credit to a few other people. So he gets to be Kim Hager's husband. John Breitbach, also another teacher's brother-in-law and Horizon activity coordinator who loves to hear we like to pick on him on the mic a little bit, right? Josh Mark Hager, his nephew. So Josh, with that many family members in the district, I don't think that's all of them, but Josh is probably doing great or not enough most days, depending on which family member you talk to. I'm kidding, but Josh, you've just done an awesome job. You've really shown us another great example of servant leadership and all you do. Like I said, the insights at board workshops, leading our first operational excellence when Dr. Fosnok got that started. I know how involved you were in that with so many conversations with Dr. Scher, to jumping in and being present this year and leading our ship. So just thanks for all that you did with that. On top of that, Josh, what other people don't always see is how much you've enjoyed the other activities of board members we get to do. So we come to these board meetings on, every other Monday, but really, Josh he leans over to me all the time at these things, and from school visits to special events where kids or teachers are being celebrated, and Josh's like, this is the good stuff. Like, this is what we get to do when we get elected to be on the board. And so we thank you. We'll miss you as a board member, not as a friend, but as a board member, and we'll expect to see you at some public comments coming in this next year.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you.
All right.
President Hager.
Oh, jeez.
I don't think I can ever, I don't think I can say it as well as Janelle and Dan, but I just want to echo the comments. And I think that, I think both Dr. Fosnot and Dan said something about you being kind of a humble civil servant, and those were exactly the words that I wrote down. But nowhere is there a kinder, gentler soul and willing to give their time and energy, and not only just to the board work and all of the things that were already mentioned, but also I stood alongside you as we were both campaigning, and you were willing to brainstorm with me. You were willing to meet with me. You were willing to give me advice, both at the time we were both just new to this gig, and then obviously this past year when you moved into the president's role. And I just really think that you set a high bar and a solid standard for what it means to serve, what it means to lead. And you've just modeled just not only servant leadership, but just really just being a good boss, being a good leader, being a good man. And so just thank you. I was able to give you a hug yesterday. I don't think this is goodbye. Like I said, I think hopefully it's not just public comment, but it's around at sporting events. It's around watching our kids compete with each other, and it's also just being just a really good community member, and you're out and about in the public. So congratulations for your service. This is an excellent thing to add to your resume, but I don't think you're finished yet. And just thanks for all you've done for me and for this board and for this community.
Thank you. Now we're done. Okay. Financial report.
Okay, so let me take this opportunity, since I have the mic, I want to give the public a little history lesson about Mr. Josh Hager. So Josh and Kim entrusted my wife Lisa to watch their youngest. I'm not going to say his name just to protect him, but so who would have thought that in the future that he would be elected to the board? Let me tell you about what Josh has done for Bismarck Public Schools. He has brought the budget impact report for the board to review at our budget workshop. He has brought the budget variance report to the board. Two tools, I think, that take a real snapshot in a pretty detailed budget and allow board members to analyze, okay, this is what needs to be adjusted. This is where maybe we're spending too little, too much money. He also helped shape what our monthly financial report looks like with the 2 years prior, and really given board members tools, hopefully, to analyze that monthly financial report. Before the operational excellence committees were cool, Josh and I had the pleasure of working on the long-range financial plan and the long-range facilities plan. So again, just from me as Darren, thank you, Josh. Appreciate it. So now, if all is good, I can give you the financial report. So just real quick, on the financial report, I think it's important for the public to know when we look at the, let me pull it up here, like the fund balance on the general fund. And I think this was brought up a couple times with the public on, they just wouldn't understand, well, there's excess money in that fund balance. But what I want to, if you look at on very first page, general fund, year-to-date revenues, that is 95% of our revenues collected. Okay, so we have a little bit of time. We're going to collect 5% more, and we're going to collect a little more this year. We're trending more positive. We're actually a little light on local, but a little heavy on state, but overall to the good. On the expenses, however, that is only 80% of our expenses. So we will still have 20% of our expenses, so that fund balance won't be 54 million. It'll be something in line with that 18 to, let's say, 21, 22 million. Again, on expenses, we are trending higher. So if you go to page 3, you can see that we're projected to end better than projected, and a lot of that has to do with salaries and benefits. So what happens is, for example, the board has heard many of us say, we were down, for example, 5 bus drivers for a lot of the year. Those were budgeted positions that we weren't able to expend, right? And we would have that with various positions where you have somebody leave on a Monday, they don't start on a Tuesday, they start a couple weeks later, up to a month later. So that is dependent on some of that turnover. So it's budgeted at assuming we're going to have everybody. We also had some teachers that took extended leave. They're allowed to do that by law. Some of it's unpaid. Well, that helps the budget in that case. And then the other thing I wanted to point out is we had a couple that I've been watching, and we found that one was a Johnson O'Malley on that we just got to do a budget transfer, coded to the wrong thing, and that was a small thing, right? We had a $6,000 budget. We're tracking at $23,000. That seems small, but that's fourfold, right? So that was just a miscode. The other one was on income for other. There's a CRACTC. That's just an end-of-year thing. That's kind of our financial amount we get to collect from them for administering the program. So that will be collected. Right now, it looks like there's none collected, but that'll happen in July. So that is the financial report for this month, and I would stand for any questions the board may have.
Board members, questions, comments? Okay, seeing none. So do we want to circle back up?
Yeah, so if I may, Mr. Hager, so you're going to see on the screen, I asked Brad there is the abstract votes, so that's the canvassing results. I can't remember. I think they had 7 additional votes that maybe came in Burleigh County. Did not change the outcome of any of our votes. Brad, if you go to page 15. What you'll see on page 15 is the board members. So it's still the same board members that would be that you'll do in the language, whoever's going to do the language. And then, so you can see there's the totals on page 15. Now if you go to page 18, you can see Bismarck Public Schools Measure 1, and you can see the totals there, which it changed by a few votes, but it still did not pass, of course. So the motion that's in the packet is can be used if somebody would want to do that.
Mr. Eastgate.
Thanks, President Hager. I would move that we accept the results of the canvass for the June 9th, 2026 school district election. Declare Tony Auckland, Rob Jonas, and Amanda Peterson as elected members of the school board. Declare Measure 1 failed, and declare Measure 2 passed, requiring school board minutes continue to be published.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none. Dr. Scher.
Eastgate,
Yes.
Peterson, we lose her. Preskey,
Yes.
Hager.
Yes. Okay, motion passes. With that, all agenda items have been considered, but before I declare this meeting adjourned, I just want to thank you all. It's been a pleasure. I declare this meeting adjourned.